Excuse me, sir.
Good.
Excuse me, sir. It's 10:30 right now, and we are going live on YouTube right now. May I please start with all of your permission?
Sumita and Shashwat, they have the people to flag off.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Start a streaming.
So, very, very warm good morning to all of you. Today, we have gathered here to celebrate our illustrious alumni. And I, Aditi Mehta, along with my entire Alumni Relations Committee, welcome you all in the Joy Day celebration. We are here celebrating Sanjoy sir's every moment and every thing that sir has done. And first of all, I would like to tell you that it was supposed to be on 7th of December, but we are doing it today so that all of our batchmates could know more about sir and we could coordinate with everybody on a happy Sunday. So, Sanjoy sir was a rural development activist known for his pioneer contributions to the community health and development media. For us, he's an airman at heart, and we all love him for what all he has done. From 1986 to 1995, Sanjoy sir did pioneering work in Western Rajasthan. He set up Urmul Trust in 1986 in Bikaner with chief objective of empowering the local people to address their own development needs. By 1995, Urmul expanded with a network of organizations addressing the concerns of the poor in the districts of Bikaner, Jodhpur, and Jaisalmer in the western Rajasthan. Sanjoy sir wrote extensively and spiritedly on development issues. He was one of the first to realize the need for media advocacy for the NGOs and struggle based groups and established Charkha as an interface between NGOs and mainstream media. Sir's work in Assam is also well known, and we would be knowing more about it as we pass on the entire day with him. We are really blessed, obliged, and everything to have all the illustrious alumni with us and Sumita ma'am, who is our guest of honor today. I first welcome Shashwat Nakul sir, our alumni chair, to please speak a few words about the entire event and communicate with us.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Professor Nakul. I'm the alumni chair since past 1 month. And this happens to be the first event that I am coordinating along with the students. And it's primarily a student's effort that they have put together a day-long online event, and online being the new normal. As Aditi also mentioned, IRMA already has many luminaries as alumni. And Sanjoy sir happens to be one of the prominent among them. And it will be a really good experience for the existing students as well as the general public in the public in general to know more about sir, especially from people who have spent 2 years along with him doing a program here, spending lifelong. Sumita ma'am can talk a lot about from the personal front of Sanjoy sir, as well as you all being in touch with each other, being alumni of the first batch. I'm sure you all will have a lot of things to interact. And it's just a platform that we can provide for, and the platform will be enriching in terms of contributing to existing students to let them know what is the legacy of IRMA, as well as provide them an opportunity to talk to you, interact with you, and also allow each of the batchmates of, say, PRM1 specifically in this event to meet up, catch up in an e-space. So without much delay, I'll call Professor Shashwat to formally introduce, formally open this session and give his directorial remarks. Professor Shashwat.
Unmute. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
And I guess I am visible also.
Yeah, good to go.
Okay. Thank you, Nakul. And thank you, students, for providing this platform. And this is yours. But I just would like to tell you something. And for all Sanjay's friend, and I don't know whether Shankar is also around here. Has Shankar joined? Because I would like Shankar to come in some time. And I have a memory with Sanjay. And before going to Assam, he had come to IRMA to make a presentation of what he's thinking and what he's planning to do and about development work. And after his presentation, I, Shankar Datta and Sanjoy, three of us were walking towards our residences. And I used to, those days, I used to live above Sankar's residence in B9. And Shankar was just the ground floor, mine was the first floor. And as we go to, we headed towards Sankar's place and had a cup of tea, which Sonja had made. And while having tea, we were chatting. And then he had talked about, Shankar told me that Sanjay is planning to go to Assam. And that's the time I had just returned from Assam. And my experience was not good. In the sense, I felt afraid. It was, before I went there, I was told that never open up your Bengali identity. I have two identities. I have one identity. I have several identities, but one, if you talk about linguistic identity, I have two major linguistic identity. One is Odia and another is Bangla. So I am both Odia and a Bengali or Gujarati now for last 28 years. So I told Sanjay, don't go to Assam. And because that was, I had a very, very harrowing experience, which I don't want to recount today. And I was vehemently opposite. Shankar remembers. I said that don't go now. Now it is not the right time. Wait for some time. Things are very, very bad. Because I went to villages in the district of Dibrugarh and near Guwahati also, some villages I went. And I was scared. People actually scared me off. They told me stories. It was stories, all I heard. I did not see anything, but it was the stories that I heard. I remember one night I was traveling from Dibrugarh to Guwahati, one of the most harrowing nights that I ever had. And based on that experience, I told Sanjay, please don't go. I was not so close to him to call him Joy. Okay, I was yet because I just knew him as an acquaintance and had not got that friendly with him. So I used to call him Sanjay, and I said that please don't go. And I think Shankar will remember that because Shankar, three of us were standing, and we were talking over a cup of tea. But when I looked at, after having said whatever I wanted to tell him, I looked at him because as a psychologist, that is my part of the job, to look at people. And Sanjay had a very piercing sort of look. He just looked into me, and I knew at that time, whatever I have said, he might have registered, and he must have thought that he's another, our what do you call a scared bong. So he looked at me, and from his eyes I could know that he's determined. This man with a strong determination, and he was already determined. And later I told Shankar that I know this man has already determined. He has decided to go, and he did great work. I visited Urmul. I have gone to Urmul 2-3 times. And I did also training for Urmul in Kolayat, I think, yeah, that's the village, in one of the villages we had. And every member of Urmul, they're talking about Sanjay every time. And I think that was, I could understand that time the impact he had on all those people there at that time. And today, 20th December, is also a very remarkable day. And this is the UN had declared this day as a World Solidarity Day. And World Solidarity Day came up because of the rising inequity in society. All the societies, inequities inequality. Inequality is rising, and both inequity and inequality, it's on the rise. People are not getting, large section of the masses, they are not getting what is due to them. And in order to increase the solidarity, to reduce inequality, to work for the poor, this day is earmarked. And I'm so happy that you have chosen this day to remember Sanjay, the Joy Day. And thank you so much. I will not take much of time, and because let me tell you, as a person who knew him a bit, not much, and my heart, whenever someone talks about Sanjay, my heart becomes very heavy, and I know how it must have been with the family. And so with this, I wish all of you very, very fruitful and pleasant interaction, for day-long interaction, particularly people from, I could see CP Mohan face, and I'm not able to see now many of the faces, and I think that I expect that most of the first batch ones will join this. Thank you so much. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really enlightening and little bit heartwarming also, because even I can't control my emotions so easily. So I think it will be a good outburst of emotions for all of us all day long. Happy ones, learning ones, and everything. As we move ahead, I request Shivan sir to please present a floral tribute to Sir Sanjoy sir. And we move for the Deep Prajwalan as well.
Aditi, we're moving ahead. Aditi, we're moving ahead, please. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. So now we invite Sumita ma'am to speak to us. I'll tell briefly about Sumita ma'am, but above all, what all I say, the best part is that she has been very cooperative and kind to all of us. And Sumita ma'am is an Indian entrepreneur who started Rangsutra Collective and won the Nari Shakti Puruskar Award from the President of India. Hundred of artisans co-own Rangsutra, and through the company, they sell their goods, bridging the gap to the global customers. Sumita ma'am is Sanjoy sir's wife and our friend also, as much as Sanjoy sir's friend. We welcome you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. First of all, I'd like to say that Sanjoy would like everyone to call him Joy. And not sir, certainly not sir, but Joy, I think is good, is a good one to call him by. So I'd like to start off by saying that, you know, I'm not very good at giving long speeches. So I don't know if I can talk for 20 minutes at a stretch. And if I finish before that, I would be more than happy for people to sort of, ask me to elaborate on something or questions. Is that all right, Aditi?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I met Sanjoy before he went to IRMA, when we were in college, first year BA. And, you know, unlike most of us who sort of were still wondering, we were about 17, 18 at that time. We were sort of wondering what do we do later on after college, because college is often a time when you're still figuring out what is it really that you want to do with your life. So we met in the economics class, and unlike the rest of us, along with economics, he also studied, he took up rural development, a course which was offered by the university for the first time ever. And so with rural development, what he would do, it involved field work. So he'd go off into villages, be away from college for a lot of time, and then come back and share some stories. So basically what, I wanted to bring out was that Sanjoy was interested in working in rural India, and he felt that the real change and real development in India can only happen from the rural areas. And this was partly because also we lived in Bombay. We were going to college in Bombay, and Bombay is a city, Mumbai is a city of great inequalities. And so this question was on our minds, that what is it that forces so many people from all the villages and towns of India to come and live under such difficult circumstances to make a life for themselves. So after we finished college, I think it must have been, it can't be just coincidence, but IRMA was just being set up. That was the year. And Sanjoy, he had the option of joining IIM, but he decided that he would join IRMA. And I think that at IRMA, he really met a lot of, what shall I say, co-travelers, classmates who were sort of very similarly aligned. And that was, I think, the time when it strengthened his resolve to continue to live and work for the development of rural Indians. So I'm going to basically, I know the topic you have given me is Sanjoy the visionary, but Sanjoy's vision was very accompanied by practice. He was not an armchair theorist. And so I will talk about, the kind of vision that he had and to start off the Urmul Trust. And I know many of my colleagues from Urmul are here, so they will elaborate more. But to my mind, Urmul in 1986, at that time, Sanjoy we were wondering where to live and work. Sanjoy had just come back from Oxford after a degree there, and there were three options open to him. One was to work with Shankar. I think Shankar is here. I'm not sure he's here. And with Vijay Mahajan in Pradhan to set up Kesla. One was to work in IIHMR, Jaipur. And the third one was to go and live and work in this place that no one had heard about called Lunkaransar. So, of course, he chose the last one. And I think, nowadays there's so much of talk of social enterprises. Social enterprises are aspirational today, are sort of seem the answer to the world's problems, a balance between sustainability and impact. But I think, Urmul Trust was the first real social enterprise, pioneer in social enterprises. I don't know how many of you know that the Urmul Trust was set up totally with farmers' money from the Urmul Dairy. The Urmul Dairy was profitable, and they set aside a huge sum in those days of 14 lakhs, which was a lot in those days. I'm talking about 1985, 1986, to set up the Urmul Trust. And Urmul Trust and Sanjoy, realizing that, there has to be some, while the trust was focusing on maternal and child health, he felt that these services should not be coming for free. Because, he realized that if something comes for free, very often people do not appreciate it. So he managed to convince the dairy that, all the milk farmers who were giving milk, at that time, they had, the price was around 3 rupees, that they would set aside 3 paise from those 3 rupees for health services. And actually, it was really a visionary thing to do, because what was happening was that, it was a very prosperous dairy at that time. There were some farmers who were really, I mean, the whole dairy was doing well, but some farmers were really doing well. And so the 3 paise added up to quite a bit, but to provide for those health services, which was basically immunization for mothers and children, for pregnant women and children. It was some nutrition work. But very soon, the better off farmers realized that they were subsidizing the poor. Because irrespective of whether you had 100 head of cattle and you were giving hundreds of liters of milk, or you had no animals and no cows and you did not provide any milk, you could still get those health services. So there were some rumblings in the trust and in the dairy, and but it continued. But however, in 1987, that place faced the worst drought of the century. Worst drought. I mean, there were people who were like 80 years old who said they had never seen a drought like that. And Sanjoy, being what he was, he turned that disaster into an opportunity. So we said, okay, normally drought relief work, you find, the government starts drought relief work, you find people working in the hot sun, mostly women and men, and, building roads, constructing stuff during drought relief. So he said, let's see what else can be done. So we did a survey in the villages, and we found out that many of the women had charkhas. And that's how we started. We didn't think about, will there be a market for it, whatever. The idea was that he said, let's give work. So we contacted the Khadi organization, got wool, and then, of course, the work started, and, we were landed up with all this wool and didn't really know what to do with it. And after that, as it happened, things fell into place. We met up with weavers who then came and who taught other weavers in Lunkaransar to weave, and one thing led to another. And in fact, Rangsutra has its origins there, right there in 1986, because at that time, Sanjoy felt that we really need to work at drought proofing. Of course, needless to say, at that point, the dairy and the farmers could no longer support Urmul Trust because they had been through a bad time with the drought and lost their livelihoods. So at that time, one other thing that Sanjoy was very clever about was that, in the Urmul Trust, when it was being set up and registered, and he was still working in Tribhuvan Das Foundation in those days, in 1984. When the trust was registered. And what he realized that many NGOs are working, especially in the spheres of health and education, and sometimes duplicating the work of government and doing the work that government should be doing, government bodies. So in the Urmul Trust, he had, on the board of trustees, he had the district collector, the principal of the medical college, the chief medical health officer. And that kind of connection paid off. And we, at that time, during the drought, we were really supported by the government. So that partnership with the district collector and the government helped us not only to build our own campus in Lunkaransar, because it was all done as part of drought relief work, and it served the dual purpose of both creating infrastructure and providing work to all the people around who needed the work. So that was one real, it was something very strategic, but executed very beautifully in a practical way. So after that, one of the things that as Urmul grew then, from health services, we worked in income generation with spinners and weavers. We worked in education because we realized that the schools were non-existent. I mean, even if the schools were there, there was teachers were not there in the school. So we collaborated again with the district administration and with Lok Jumbish, which was a government program to work in education. And then another thing that happened gradually with Sanjoy, always was a very restless person. So he would say, okay, we are here in Lonkaransar for 5 years and then we have to go. But 5 years, he realized that it takes to set up an organization. But once he set it up, and his colleagues who were working with him there, all of them or most of them were from Bikaner, whether it was Arvind ji, who sorry to say is no more, then Ganga ji and Veena ji, Sahiram ji, who was the first accountant and his first team leader. He realized that a lot of people, and that was something that he was able to do, was to motivate and inspire others to get out their own leadership skills. So he encouraged a lot of the people who had worked with him, who worked with us in Lonkaransar, to set up their own organization, because he was worried that Urmul would become too bureaucratic. There would be power struggles. There would be the usual stuff that you see in organizations that, and he really wasn't cut out to, as he would joke, that if I want to really form such a large organization, I would have joined the Indian Administrative Services. But he was sort of not interested in, administering and all that, and very wary about the organization becoming bureaucracy. So something very good happened out of that, and that is today we have, 7 different Urmul organizations which Sanjoy really helped incubate, helped set up, helped get funds for, and most importantly, helped people to sort of develop their own leadership and run their own organizations. And one thing here which I would really like to say, Sanjoy was he didn't believe in isms, right from college days. He was not into, he would say, I'm not right, I'm not left, I like to be center, because in the center you can get a proper view of the whole thing. You're not biased. If you are right-leaning, you're biased in one way. If you're left-leaning, you're biased in one way. But if you stand in the center, you get the whole picture. So similarly, like that, in Urmul, he encouraged all kinds of people. I mean, there were some organizations that were set up, Urmul organizations, which were focused on pure service delivery, running ICDS center. Then there were others which were basically doing dharnas and doing right to information campaigns and, questioning the government. And of course, most of them are what Sanjoy really believed in, which was like constructive action. Constructive action, but at the same time, he was very, very clear that when you saw something wrong, especially at a higher level, you had to write about it. And whether it's to do with your own community that you're working in, like Rajasthan is, at that time, and I'm sure today it's better, but at that time there were a lot of differences in, caste differences. The position of women was so bad. Women were all in parda. And of course, the class thing wasn't so much because it was rural India and everyone was kind of not well off. But strategically, the way that he chose to address this was working with the poorest women. So our health workers were all traditional midwives who were mostly lower caste and very poor, poor women. So empowering them, then working with, of course, weavers and other communities. And in that way, I think he helped sort of while addressing, practical needs of the community in health, in education, in earning incomes, drinking water. Water was something which was full of caste issues there, because there were, certain castes weren't allowed to access to the common well. So whenever we built something new, it would be to ensure that all people could access it. And if, if needed, it would be where the poorest people live. So he addressed all of these in a very, what shall I say, in a light way, not heavy way, in a light way, taking people along And through our work and the way we worked, our team, we had the similar issues in our team, but those were all addressed by dialogue, whether it related to caste, whether it related to women. And we have a lot of women members in Urmul, we've always had. And I think it was this ability to, to be able to communicate so well to everyone, whether it was a poor village farmer or the secretary of the government of Rajasthan. Of course, he would often joke and say that, when I go to the medical college with a patient, it helps if I wear a coat and a tie because then people listen to me. But if I go in my kurta pajama, they don't listen. But essentially, he had this ability to be able to communicate and, make that connect with all kinds of people. And that's what I would say, led him. Of course, you talked about Charkha. So he used Charkha. He really pioneered Charkha. And he wrote about, it all started when he was writing from his own experiences on the ground. It wasn't like a journalist or a reporter going in to find a story, but writing from the ground. And but when after leaving Urmul, when we were in Delhi for a couple of years and he was setting up Charkha, he felt sort of uncomfortable that, to be living in Delhi and going off here and there and then writing about it or encouraging people to write about it. He felt he really needed to be where the action was on the ground, and not just write about it from a distance. So that's what took us to Assam. And yes, what Mr. Biswas, Shashwat Biswas said earlier, it's true that there were people who, there was this concern, but I think it was essentially his belief that, people can be reasonable, that people, if maybe he was overconfident, could be that he felt that he could communicate and, he could talk and make the other person understand that there is a place for constructive action. That yes, you need to question unjust structures. You need to, and of course, solidarity with the marginalized is the most important thing. And you can do it in both ways, in constructive ways, which is what he showed by building the embankment where 30,000 people got together. I'm sure people from Assam who are here will talk about it. So that, I think, in a nutshell, was Sanjoy. Now you've got me emotional. But I think I'll end here. And if anybody has anything to ask, I would be very happy to answer questions.
If anybody wants to ask question. Ma'am, it was really hard to ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If you have something you want to ask, you have, I've left out. If you feel, I'll be very happy to respond.
Ma'am, if you could elaborate more on what work sir did in Assam, bit more about it. Our new participants would be very happy to know about it.
Okay. So in Assam, unlike Rajasthan, where we had a local strong organization like the Urmul Dairy, in Assam, we didn't really have that. Yes, we were under the banner of AVARD, but AVARD was really based in Delhi and, and in other parts of the country. And the whole idea was to set up sort of a similar constructive action organization there. And so initially we decided that we would just understand the place and the people. So for the first 3 months, our small team really went and stayed in people's homes in Majuli and learnt about the place. And again, there we seemed to, just after 3 months, the worst floods happened there. Like we had the worst drought in Rajasthan, the worst floods happened there. And while there were the floods, we realized that we really couldn't, continue to do research while the island was drowning. So we decided to get, active on the ground. We did health relief work. We did all kinds of other relief work. And that's when I think we, started getting to know people inside out, and also realize that so much of funds that goes for things like drought relief and flood relief is siphoned off by corrupt people on the way. And so Sanjoy wrote about that, like he did in Rajasthan. He wrote about it. The only thing in Assam was that people, what shall I say? People seem something. They wouldn't say much face to face, but underneath there was something simmering which we couldn't really catch. So the fact that he wrote about, and this time the writing was not just about corrupt contractors and politicians, but also the militant group, also the terrorist group. And I think since no one ever talked about that in public, I think that was the first the first time that anyone did that, and anyone did it from living there and living like in a place like Majuli. Not even, normally people live in Guwahati or in Rajasthan, you have a lot of people in Jaipur, but not living in the district. So that's where I think but the most heartening thing was that, in less than a year, the people of, and we brought out a small newsletter from Majuli, and within Majuli also called Deepalok in Assamese. And in less than a year, the local people were really got very enthused, and it showed in the way that 30,000 people got together to build that embankment, which is to save the island from erosion. And I think that's what got the powerful people, both state and non-state, especially the non-state, worried that if here is a way, if someone shows that there is a way of achieving the similar goals through non-violent, peaceful action, then no one is really going to, buy the story of guns.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. That's really nice to know more about sir. Before we proceed for the reminiscences session, I request Piyush to share a small PPT. And also, when he spoke to multiple people about sir, everybody was so excited about it and so happy about it. Everybody has sent their love, even if they have not been able to join right now. They have sent love for you and sir, both of them. Piyush, please.
Is the PPT visible?
Yes, it is.
Late Sanjoy Ghose sir, a first batch Urman, changed the face of rural development in India like no other. His feats and achievements have made a great presence in the society, and our very presence on this platform is the evidence for it. Many of you know him very well, and PRM 40 and 41 are eagerly waiting to getting to know more about him. Here is a small attempt to take everyone through his story and the impact of his work. Sanjoy sir belonged to a well-known Bengali family from Maharashtra. In an article published in the Indian Express, Professor Shreekant Sambrani sir remembers when we first met him in an interview in 1980. He spent an hour with him discussing the relative merits of IIM Ahmedabad and IRMA. When he finally made him turn down IMA, it was a coup for IRMA. These are some photographs from their classroom days. I'm sure you all will be very happy and nostalgic to see this. But what triggered the rural developer inside Joy sir? An article by Mirai Chatterjee ma'am, another famous social worker from the Alumni Journal dated 2009 of his elite school, Cathedral and John Convent School, remembers the social work they did through their Interact Club in the slums of Mumbai. They realized that the world was not fair to everyone and they had to change it. Perhaps his stay in those slums triggered Sanjoy sir to create the big social change, which finally led him to join the Institute of Rural Management, Anand. Not only did he become a part of our institution, he even motivated others like us to become a noble part of it too. This article by Ananthanarayan Sharma sir recalls how Sanjoy sir made him believe in the sensitivity and intellect of Irmans when he organized a sneaky preview of the campus and an interaction with his friends. He might not be physically present here with us, but he still continues to motivate students to join the prestigious Institute of Rural Management, Anand. This is another article by Raju Ganapati sir, where he says that Sanjoy sir's life can be summed up as one of a butterfly. After his post-graduation from IRMA in the year 1982, he joined the only NGO job available with the Tribhuvan Das Foundation at the lowest salary of his batch. He integrated equity concerns and brought in economic programs into what had been a health education effort run by doctors. Afterwards, he won an in-class scholarship to Oxford in 1984. Sanjoy sir could have literally gone anywhere in the world with that degree from Oxford, but he chose to come back to the world of Indian villages. He wanted to refashion another health cooperative, this time without inquisitive political farmer leaders. He collaborated with the Uttar Rajasthan Milk Union Limited to start the Urmul Foundation in 1986. In 6 years, Urmul became the most famous NGO in Rajasthan, eclipsing older established names. A bunch of young enthusiastic professionals diversified Urmul into gender concerns, ecology, exporting of handicrafts made by local weavers, literacy, and implementation of government programs. In a move then unprecedented in the world of Indian NGOs, he chose and appointed a successor and completely left the organization to ensure that Urmul Health Trust did not become the elongated shadow of the founder. His interest then shifted to media, and he worked to make mainstream newspapers more sensitive to the development matters. His columns in the Indian Express, Village Voice bear testimony to these efforts. Recognizing the potential of writing in mainstream media to highlight rural development issues and catalyze change, Sanjoy sir conceived of Charkha. On 24th October 1994, Charkha was formally initiated in New Delhi with the goal of spinning action into words. Its formal vision is to contribute towards building a harmonious, inclusive society empowered by knowledge. After launching Charkha, he decided to work in the insurgent-prone Upper Assam, specifically in Majuli Island in the Brahmaputra River. His father recollected the family discussions around this decision. When we were dissuading Sanjay from going to the terrorism-ridden Assam, he replied, "Then whose son will you send?" Through the sponsorship of Association of Voluntary Agencies for Rural Development Northeast, Sanjoy sir and 7 colleagues set up base in Majuli Island on the Brahmaputra River in April 1996. Within a short time, he had also diversified the social activities in Majuli around health, malaria prevention, design and manufacturing of bamboo and woven products, and education, village libraries. Now we have a very short and nostalgic video from K.D. Balachandani sir.
पहली बार मिला था 1984 में त्रिभुवन दास फाउंडेशन में। हाइट में मैं से लगभग 1.5 फुट कम, लेकिन डायनामिज्म में 5-6 फुट ऊपर। इतना डायनामिक था, उसकी एनर्जी देख के I was so impressed, और I thought कि this is the fellow, hardcore rural management person. Father very rich person, but here he was working in a very limited salary, limited resources, but lot of work done by my inspiration for the rural work in this place.
Thank you so much, sir, for that video. Sanjoy sir fiercely defended his friends and fought with those who did not share his vision for a better world. It would be trite to conclude that the world of development professionalism would be never the same without him. But instead, we can console ourselves with this quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate mriyate vakadachan, na yam bhutva bhavitya vana bhuya, ajo nitya sasvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sarire. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Piyush. It was just a small attempt from our side to bring together whatever we have been hearing about from Sumita ma'am and what we will be discussing in the session ahead. So we are about 12 minutes ahead of our schedule, and we are waiting for Shri Shreekant Sambrani, the first member secretary and the first director of IRMA, to join. In the meanwhile, I see ma'am has dropped a message in the chat, and there are a couple of messages here from Apurva Oja sir and Vivek sir. So thank you everybody. Please keep interacting. And in the meanwhile, I'll like to introduce the people from PRM1. So when we started contacting everybody, and it was not at all a specific effort that was required in any case. Everything just fell in place. And as Aditi also mentioned earlier, it is the love for Joy sir, that helped us bring all of you together here without any effort itself. A few of the people who confirmed that they will be joining us are Professor Shreekant Sambrani, the first director of IRMA. Then Mr. Sanjay Panigrahi sir, who is here. He is the former chief customer officer at Pidilite. Then we have CP Mohan sir, the director at ESAF Small Finance Bank Limited. Then we have Dr. Shankar Datta sir. He's a professor and he's also into advisory of services and mentoring. And we have Mr. V. Vivekanandan sir, the director at Fishmark. And we'd also like to mention that this ahead is a free falling session. You can please pitch in, and we would like to invite all the PRM1 alumni to please share all your thoughts, all your expressions, and please have the conversations that you would like to have. Thank you so much. So in the meanwhile, by the time we have Dr. Sambrani joining us, Professor Sambrani joining us, please do come ahead and share if you have anything to. Thank you.
Karanpreet, may I share? I'm Sanjoy Panigrahi here. Or you
Yes,
want
sir.
me to share after our professor speaks?
That's totally fine, sir. By the time he joins, you can please.
Yeah, so I can,
yes,
so that I have got more experienced my colleagues in development sector who can speak much more with clarity with what kind of work professionally Sanjay did. Well, Sanjay and I worked in a different sector, I went and joined Amul, and Sanjay was in Tribhuvandas Foundation. In fact, I had also applied for Tribhuvandas Foundation, two Sanjoys, Sanjoy Panigrahi, Sanjoy Ghose, both applied for the, both worked for, both had applied at that time. Because we worked in two different fields, I had little visibility to the kind of work that he was doing. I was in a sales and marketing profile, and he was in a development sector job and in many places. But I used to hear about some very, very good quality work that he was doing all through. Whenever I used to meet my friends at, he was I would describe him as a friend, though we worked in two different sectors, I will describe him as a friend. Our parents, knew each other. I think Joy's father was posted in Odisha for some time from the state from which I belong. And he in fact told me that, my father was telling me that he knows your parents. And that was we had just come out of college, and possibly in 70s, his first father was posted there. Joy's one of the great qualities I saw was his education was from very good colleges, very good pedigree institutions throughout, Oxford, then John Hopkins, and the kind of work he was doing is basically very, very praiseworthy and great seminar topics. Apart from anything, he could have gone to places and, just by promoting himself. But that guy was stupendous. He would never flaunt his degrees, nor the kind of work he does when he meets you. He makes you so comfortable, nor he would even ask what you are doing. He was a darling in that sense. I have met very few people who have achieved so much in life but rarely speak about their achievements. That was his great quality that possibly shows the way he left Urmul with the leadership. And we know many cases where people just hang around what they have created. But this guy knew that he was for more and more initiatives rather than one of which he was the creator or the mentor or whatever you call. He had a heart of gold, and every time I met him, we would feel that as if we never parted. We spoke very little, but he was very charismatic, very, very charismatic. And when I got married in Cuttack in 1986, I was away from most of my PRM1 friends. I had none in Orissa who was working in Orissa. So he sent me a very beautiful handwritten, letter with a gift. He had a very good handwriting, and every word that he wrote in that message was from his heart. I still hold that letter after 35 years. It's almost 35 years now as a part of remembrance for him. In my what used to call MTS1, which was after 3-4 months of IRMA, we had 2 MTSs. I went to a place in Orissa called Pipli, and Pipli is very famous for applique work. And there were people who do that applique work, and this was a MANAC project, Management Accountancy project, given by Professor Subhash Sharma to go and study a village level institution and their P&L and balance it. So I went to this Pipli applique work and went through their all account books. And at that time in this, you come to know what purpose that society was serving. It was a cooperative society. So I went through the cooperative society and wrote it in my paper, and I submitted it after MTS. So we were supposed to present this, and I presented this, and it was very much liked. I got an A in that. But after it was over, he was the only guy who walked up to me and said, "Ki Sanjay, I am really impressed." I said, "Ki yaar, ऐसे ही मेरा मैनक बनक अच्छा नहीं होता, थोड़ा सा इसमें कुछ अच्छा बोला." It's not about मैनक. It's about what you did and you wrote. In fact, I had done a lot of work on as regards the craftsmen who do that work. He said, "How does this spread? How does it spread from one village to another?" So when a daughter from that particular village, Pipli, gets married to another village, she takes the skill with her, and she was very interested. And I still remember that he was the only one from our batch who came back, and he spent the whole evening with me trying to find out, So I could feel that he had really an interest. It was not anything superficial. He really had interest in village communities, their development, and it was so good. Joy's, one of the things about Joy I remember was his smiling face. I feel that people, I believe we love, not as much for what they achieve professionally or socially, but how they make you feel whenever you meet them. Joy always left us with so much happiness and vibes when we met. And it is very difficult for me. I think I was in Delhi when 1997. And when we heard about his being abducted in Assam, he went away very young, and I somewhere still can't digest that. I somewhere feel that he's still around, only that he has become silent. Long live friend. You are part of some of the most beautiful memories that we in PRM1 will always cherish. That's all I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay sir. Thank you for sharing all that you could feel right straight from the heart. And now we have been joined by Professor Shreekant Sambrani. We'll request Sambrani sir, you to please come online and share your thoughts.
Thank you, Taranpreet, and good morning to all of you. After many, many years, we are meeting, at least in Zoom, and don't be taken aback by my avatar. This is partly pandemic, partly normal process of aging, nothing else, nothing more than that. almost certainly, I have the longest association with Sanjoy amongst all of you. Oldest, I should say, not the longest, oldest association. I knew him before Sumita. I knew him before all of you. I knew him from the day he appeared for the IRMA interview, and it happened to be in Bombay. I was taking the interview team to Bombay and mentoring them, sort of, not because I knew any better. It was just a question of Andho mein Kana Raja. I had some experience of admissions process at IIMA. The others didn't have any. So we had an interview. If I remember right, in South Bombay. And Joy, after the interview, said that I would like to come and meet you in the evening. So I welcomed him. He came and he asked a lot of searching questions about what IRMA was and how it was going to function and so on. And in as much as we knew anything about it, we also had mainly vague ideas at that time. I told him. And a few weeks later, in early April, in fact, we beat IIMA to the admissions announcement deadline, and we sent out our admissions offer, and Joy was, of course, in them. So he called me immediately after we received the admissions letter. And he said, look, I would like to come and talk to you again because I have received admission from IIMA as well. So I said, most welcome. And he came and visited us in Anand for a day. And once again, we went through a very long round of chats and so on. The upshot was that I ended up telling him that, look, for you, I would be happy if you took the IIM admission in preference to us, because careers, we cannot anywhere near promise what IIMA promises. And I would be very happy for you if you went there, because I have equal affection for IIMA as well. So he said, let me think about it. In the meanwhile, I had got to know his parents as well. His father, Shankar Ghosh, who used to work then for DCM, and I had a very good common friend, and we had got together in Delhi once. His mother also I knew, she was a journalist, and his aunt, his Buaji, Arundhati Ghosh, was India's permanent representative at the United Nations some years later. And she was the one who took very firm stand against CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, and that position India has not deviated from. So he came from a very, very illustrious background. He then told me, called up, and he said he had decided to take the IRMA admission and not the IIMA admission. So I was very happy. From day one, he was a real live wire in class participation. He did studiously all the exercises, all the assignments given to him. And I was particularly harsh on him because I didn't want to entertain any thoughts or doubts or questions that I favored him because of my personal relationship. But he withstood all that, and he still did very, very well. The PRM batch 1 was living in Farmers Hostel at the NDDB campus, and we were quite a lot of butt of jokes, etc., amongst the NDDB, very conservative, very traditional campus people. They used to call us all Jolawalas at that time, and people had difficulty meeting the 8:30 schedule of the class. They used to jump over the fence and come to the diagnostic lab campus where the classes were, and they would come huffing and puffing, and many times I had the first class session and I would have to scold them. There was a flat given in one of the quarters for the women participants. And some people, of course, young men would always hang around there, and that too raised eyebrows, but that was fine. There were groups within the PRM1, sort of. There was an Andhra Mahasabha group of people, which included various people from Andhra, and Jharna Ojha was an honorary member of that. She ended up marrying one of them. And then there was a G9 Gunmaster group. At that time, there was a popular film by Mithun Chakravarti was called Gunmaster G9. And in G9, it was Joy who was the leader. Then we had Monojit Chaudhary. I don't know if Sanjay Panigrahi was part of it. Then Matthew Cherian, several others. I can remember their names if given time, but I don't want to take time. So Joy was the G9 leader, but Joy was quite different. He always had uh, a sense of purpose. So when towards the end of 81, middle or end of 81, I decided to leave IRMA, I announced the decision and Joy stormed into my office. He said, "You are betraying us." I said, "How am I betraying you? I never made a promise that I will stay here all through." So he said, "No, but I came here because of you." I said, "No, you didn't come here because of me. You came here because of the institution. And the institution remains. It is larger than anybody. And don't ever entertain this thought in your mind." So a couple of days later, he came and apologized. And he said, "Even if you go away, can I remain in touch?" I said, "That goes without saying. I mean, you are, of course, welcome to visit us wherever we are, and we are not going very far away, and be in touch at all times." And he did. So he was the first one to accept a job for a completely non-profit organization. He joined the Tribhuvan Das Foundation, which was then running the both animal and human health program in Kheda district. He put his heart and soul into it, pursued it, had differences, substantial differences, because he was an original thinker, and that was to be expected. And then he went on to Urmul. After a year and a half at Tribhuvan Das Foundation, he went on to Urmul. I had earlier visited Urmul in connection with the assessment of Operation Flood, and he used to share notes with me. And most of the places that he visited, I had also gone on my visit. And we talked. We talked in those days was very difficult, but whenever we could, we talked. Otherwise, he wrote very long letters. He started a newsletter. I think it was called Urmul Times or something, which he used to send us. And most important, he started a health program in Urmul, rather than just sit back and do only the standard dairy development work. And that Urmul program took off quite well. He was very happy with it. A little later, he wanted to apply for INLAC's Foundation fellowship to go to the UK. So I said, he asked my advice. At all times, he used to ask my advice before he took any step. Not that I knew anything better, but I flattered myself that, I know something better and I should advise people. So I did. I told him, go right ahead because it's a good foundation and Oxford is a great place to go. So he took the fellowship, went to Oxford. He chose courses after talking to me and did very, very well. He wrote a thesis that was exemplary and he sent me a copy, and I was greatly impressed by his work. Thereafter, he received an offer to work in an African country. I think it was Cape Verde, if I remember right. So I said, there are problems with politics there. And do you want to really go into a country which is a political hotbed, and there could be quite a lot of trouble? So once again, he did the honor of listening to me and did not accept that offer, came back to Delhi, started working in Delhi. And then out of the blue, he said, I am now going to, he had, of course, in the meanwhile got married and so on. I couldn't attend his wedding, but I did remember that he got married to Sumita, and I sent my greetings and so on. Then he said he is going to Majuli, the island. So I said, by all means, go and tell me what things are like. And if you will permit me, one of these days, I will come and visit you. So he said, by all means, that would be my pleasure. And he kept on writing to me all the time. Every week or 2 weeks, I would get a letter from him and I would reply to him. In fact, the last letter I wrote, not knowing that he was abducted the day before I wrote that letter. And that was the last communication I sent to him. Uh, I I don't know if I, in my long career as a teacher, whether I have had any other student with whom I shared this strong a bond, even though it was a short-lived association. I continue to share my bond with PRM1, at least several of those who are around here, but others too have a place in our heart. I took a group of my classmates, other oldies like me, from IIT Bombay 1965 batch, and I took them to IRMA. That was last January. And everybody was very happy to see us there. And the concluding remark I made at that meeting in the auditorium with Professor Hiteshwar Bhatt sitting there, that people asked me several times, do you have regrets of not having children? I said, no, it is not right that we don't have children. We have many children, and 48 of them from IRMA first batch, PRM, are our dearest children. And one should not speak as a parent that call favorites, but Sanjay would be certainly among the most favorite of them all. Even after these many years, I feel very strongly and emotional. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sambrani, sir, for all that you have said. We could right feel the emotion till here. And now that we have been joined by many PRM1 alumni, we have CP Mohan sir, Vivekanandan sir, Shankar Datta sir, and we also have a couple of questions and lovely chats and banters going on in the chat section. So now I would request CP Mohan sir to take the session ahead, and then we'll discuss it with his batchmates as well.
Thank you. We have many of us here. Thanks for this opportunity. In fact, Sumita, you're still there, I hope. Professor Sambrani, great to see you. Thank you for that wonderful owning up all of us as your kids. It definitely feels great to be in your mind. For me, when I was in IRMA, I remember I was one of those newly married fellows, and I have a story with Sam on that, but that will wait. Anyway, so I used to stay outside after the first trimester, and for me, Joy was up there. He was from the elite institutions. He had unpickable English and. But yet I found him, he was a person who was very easy to get along with, found him very friendly, and, his ideas were always quite different. I think in many ways it must have influenced me because I've seen myself thinking differently, and I'm so glad that I know him. Let me take it on from towards the, much later. In fact, I think I don't exactly remember, but I think it was in 96 or so. I used to be in charge of NABARD office in Meghalaya. And I was passing by and I saw a diminutive, small, person in white and white kurta pajama walking on the footpath of Shillong. And I could immediately see that, it was Joy Ghose, and I stopped my car and got him into it, took him to the Shillong office, and I think he came home. I asked yesterday, Gigi remembers him coming home, my wife. And then he was, talking to me. And later on, we used to have land phones. And I remember talking to him, and I remember, I don't know, Sumita, if you remember, but I owe you. I have come with my son and stayed with you for the first Vikas Kabang. So he used to run, he had organized a parliament. Kabang in, I think in Arunachali means parliament, you know, where people's gathering or whatever. And Vikas, of course, is Vikas. So he had organized Vikas Kabang, and I had gone there. I remember he took me, you know, after there was a big assembly, and later on we had gone and visited the district collector and many other officials, and we went into some villages. I think you used to keep some chicken, and I think we did have some good food out there, Sumita. So, Sumita, I won't take, there are many people who had much greater association with Joy, but Joy has been an inspirational partner in this life. I would only, you know, Sumita, I actually work in ESAF, which also has a couple of non-profits. And very surprisingly, coincidentally, and as God would have it, we actually work in Majuli. We run a school there, and we are actually trying to source water hyacinth from the villagers in Majuli. We have a challenge transporting it across the river. Because of COVID, I could not travel. I intend to travel there and organize the water hyacinth procurement system there. We have people. So yeah, we also, you know, the SAF comes from a Christian background. We were also advised that, you know, there would be challenges. So far we have been able to manage it. Things are much, much, much better than what it was. So, Sumita, on this forum or on personal messaging, if you have any focus in Majuli, if you continue to have remaining any focus on Majuli, if you let me know, we will take it up. Thank you so much. In case something else comes up, I'll share. I had made some notes, and I thought if I were to open this formally, what would I say? And I wrote down one sentence, which I will read before I close. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir, you are.
I wrote, what we as Indians did to Joy was not what any civil nation should have done. We failed Joy, and thus we failed Joy for many people. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohan sir. Thanks a lot. So before we move ahead, we have been reading the chat box very diligently and learning from it, and trying to capture all the moments that you guys shared. So we get to know about group G9, and we have somewhat understanding that there are people from group G9 who may be say Mr. Shankar Datta sir, Ravi Nigam sir, Thomas George sir, and many other who might be attending. So we would request you all, so if you would come up and share your account of Joy sir's IRMA site, that would be great. Please recollect your thoughts and please come up ahead. And now we will move ahead with Vivekanandan sir.
Good morning, everybody. It's a privilege to talk about Sanjoy, share some of my reminiscences about Joy, some of my memories about Joy. I was not necessarily part of the small circle that he belonged to on a regular basis within the IRMA campus. I think Professor Sambrani mentioned the various kinds of groupings that existed. But on the other hand, that didn't matter because we were just a batch of 44 who passed 48. Out. 48 was
started. Yeah,
it started.
Yes,
actually 60, but by somewhere by the end of the term, first term, I think we were reduced to 44
46,
and
47, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, only
44 plus
44 of us
34 plus 3, that's
got
right.
the degree. So 41 plus 3.
Yeah.
So
8 of them took
41
the
who,
1 year course and we 44 continued for the 2 year.
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
So it was 44 plus 3, is it? I am under the impression 41 please. Doesn't matter.
No, it
Small
is 44 plus 3. Yeah.
Okay. So small group, small place, 16 rooms, farmers hostel. So there is no way you can escape anybody. So everybody knew everybody very well. And the small mess where we used to have food. And of course, I didn't jump over the wall, but most did. And then we had this single classroom in which all classes took place. So, and I think the photo that was there in the PowerPoint, you can see me sandwiched between Ravi Kumar and Sanjoy. Only I am obscured by Promila, who is turning backward and talking to somebody else. So anyway, it's a very, very close-knit community, and we knew each other very well. We had many reasons to work together. There were so many assignments and groups were formed for each of them. So a lot of group work took place, field work, management traineeship segment, MTS 1, 2. So many opportunities for people to work with each other. And therefore it was a very, very intimate and personal relationship that exists between all of us, even today, with social media reinforcing our old links and bonds that now all my batchmates who are here today, we are probably almost on touch on a daily basis. So Sanjoy was certainly a person who was already a star in our batch. He was charismatic. Some of the things that already Sumita and others shared were already on the kind of list that I prepared as to what I thought about Sanjoy. Extremely bright, very quick on the uptake, also very, artistic and sensitive. Even his handwriting was a wonder to look at. And his communication skills were extraordinary, in any language for that matter. And the way he could make friends with anybody and get in touch with anybody. We used to actually say in IRMA that we are actually prepared for both extremes, 5-star and a farmer's hut. I think Sanjay was the person who took to both ends of the spectrum with great ease and comfort. He could easily straddle the whole system, and his background and his personal temperament made that possible. Certainly many of us were even envious of that ability, envious that he could quickly fit into any system. His adaptability was amazing. So the kind of things that, some of the things that come to my memory were, I think after the first term, we all were given an opportunity or given the task of going and visiting any rural development project or organization of our choice, spend a week there and come back and then put a report. I still remember Sanjoy, he had chosen Thilonia because it was one of the better known rural interventions and voluntary organization of that era, and came back, and he was, his idealism shown by his reaction that he was extremely disappointed with many aspects of that organization which he had heard so much about. I think he was not happy with the hierarchy that existed in the organization, the various culture that he had observed there, many aspects of the culture. So I even wonder whether he went to Rajasthan and set up Urmul, if only to show a different way of doing things in a much more, horizontal, with much more horizontal relationship between the team members and with the community and so on. So I still remember that very well. I think he used to be quite critical at many times about what he saw around him, including about IRMA. We can hear from what Professor Sambrani and Sumita had said, how he made a choice to come to IRMA, and therefore I think he was also therefore looking at it very critically and would be therefore quite disappointed many times with what he saw there, and when something didn't match his expectations. We also had a very interesting second term break. I was fortunate to be part of a group of 6 which included Sanjoy, and we went to the Varanasi dairy, and that was one of the dairies of one of the 18 milk sheds of the Operation Flood 1, which was not very successful. Those students were told that our assignment is to go and see why it is not working well. So I think we sort of felt very thrilled about it, and we treated ourselves as experts, and we went and looked at all aspects of the dairy and came back and wrote a scathing report. Each one of us writing a section of it, and I think NGB was very much cheesed off. Who are these guys who are just coming in and then saying all these things? Probably part of the NDDB IRMA tension of the early years. And Sanjoy was a great person to work with. We were all in Varanasi that time, put up in the IIT BHU, Banaras Hindu University. It was not an IIT at the time, and in the hostel. And we had to look for ways of this thing. Sanjay had no problem. He had a sleeping bag, and he can lie down anywhere and sleep anywhere. So we had problems with accommodation, but his flexibility and the ease of operation, nullified that. So we had good interactions, and it was great fun working with him. We also did a consumer survey of milk quality and consumer preferences. This was something that all batches at that time, wherever they worked, wherever they went for field work, did it. It was great fun also. And once again, an opportunity to get to know Sanjay. And one interesting experience was before we went for that trip, and there was this term break, and some of us were all in Delhi at that time during that break. And for me, going back all the way to Coimbatore to come back for the field work would have been probably very difficult. So I opted to tag on with other friends and stay in Delhi. Sanjoy, with the help of his father, organized a one-day training on marketing for all of us who were there in Delhi at that time. And this was a training provided by R.K. Swamy, which was an ad agency. Unfortunately, I don't think it is in existence now, but it was number 5 on the All India rankings. And I remember it was a marvelous event. And I think, of course, despite the wonderful, in fact, we had very good marketing faculty in IRMA, Mukesh Bhargav and Moitra, great faculty, and we had great classes. But still, we did learn something very interesting. I think the term USP was something that we picked up there first. So, so these are all how he showed his kind of organizational skill, his interest in helping others, and so it was a good event. And he really was very thoughtful that he thought of something like that rather than just take us for having a picnic or something. He organized this very interesting program. Then later on, I still remember something very striking was when placement took place. I think most of you know that I joined an organization called the South Indian Federation of Fishermen Societies, SIFS. And that was a unusual organization, and how it broke into the charm circle of designated organizations still remains a mystery that only Dr. Kurian and Tushar Shah can explain. So most interestingly, totally unknown organization, very small outfit, maybe a church organization. That was what everybody was suspecting. And Sanjoy and I, both of us applied for that. That was interesting. As well as I think Mohan here on this panel. So a few of us were all there. Some of us, of course, it was close to home, so it made a lot of sense. But for Sanjoy, it was completely outlandish to apply for that. And for me, the reason why he did it was probably something very close to my reason, one of my reasons, if not the entire story. We all wanted to escape this whole NDDB system, which was the only system designated, which was either the milk dairies or the oil projects or NDDB itself. So it was a kind of, we felt that there was a certain regimentation and there was a certain, and also to start working in totally new areas where there is possibility for original contribution. I think very clearly that was his thing. I don't think his he gave his name for the interview with great seriousness, but still it was very interesting that the southernmost job in India, Trivandrum, he had applied and he had participated in the interview and had a very long chat with Mr. Kulas, who had come all the way to interview us. So it sends signals about what he was looking for and what were his priorities. After he left IRMA, my connection with him was very limited. I think after he went abroad and studied, and of course, the social media didn't exist, even telephones didn't exist except in big institutions. So communication was quite poor, but still news used to filter through the grapevine, what he was up to. Then he started his own newsletters and communication, some of it which used to reach me. And in between, I think when he was in Delhi, I don't recall, probably there was some meeting we met at. Then he took me to Bengali market and got me some sweets and we had some snacks and chatted about everything. Then I think before his Assam stint, he had come to Trivandrum with Sumita and the children, stayed in the Center for Development Studies, and Suresh Balakrishnan is also online today, hosted a dinner, and that was probably the last meeting. So it was a great shock for all of us, naturally, when he went, when he was abducted and went missing. I think probably, I can feel the, God, I was so lucky to be able to pursue development without any need to prove my physical bravery, or I don't think any kind of physical threats ever happened for doing anything in Trivandrum for me. So I cannot imagine that rural management involves this kind of work. But yes, so he was really a person who thought about the larger society, looked at all the issues, and decided to take on certain things. And the restlessness that Sumita also mentioned was always there with him. He would not be satisfied with something. He wanted to always do more things, new things, better things. So I think the Sanjoy was is a kind of a extraordinary phenomenon, and we are all very, very much poorer that somebody like him was not around much longer and to provide much more contribution, to make much more contributions to development in this country and inspire a lot more people. Of course, his martyrdom itself has inspired a lot of people, and that is very obvious. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivekanandan sir. I think it is about, say, 40 years down the line that we see the relevance of these small courses, the Udemy, the Coursera's of today, that we have all been indulging in to look for the little opportunities to learn. But the anecdote that you shared about how he organized a marketing training in itself just for a one day speaks how of a visionary he was in every true sense. I would now request Sankar Datta sir to please unmute and share his set of experiences.
It's great to hear Vivek and Mohan about, and Professor Sambrani sir, namaskar. It's so great to hear you after such a long time. I don't know if I could add much to all that has been said. I think Sumita and Vivek have said a lot about Joy. But let me talk about another side of Joy, which I always used to enjoy. He was a fun person. Anything funny that we would like to try out, he will be the first one to come ahead and say, "Arey yaar, try marte na, kya farak padta hai?"
I think he locked me in, Shankar. Is he the one who locked me in?
Absolutely. So, that is the kind of a person he was. So it's, again, basically his experimentation, experimentation with his own life, etc., etc. And of course, development dialogue is something which I have had with Joy many times over. Because, of course, my primary exposure to development was through the leftist thinking that I had been exposed to in Bengal. Joy was a fair critique of that, and he always argued about various alternative routes that I need to think about before and so those used to be very enriching discussion, but that I don't want to talk about much. But more of his fun part, we have gone out early morning before the others got up, and we just tried to disappear from the IRMA campus. So even that we have tried. We have gone for a swim in the canal, so all those kind of stuff we used to do. Now, of course, with Joy, I have maintained contact even after that. Quite a few times I've been to their Delhi house. When he came to Anand, he has stayed with us, and we have spent time together talking, etc., etc. One of the major disagreement or something of discourse that we have had, of course, I've been to Urmul twice, and we have had discussions about what can be done about the Urmul design, etc. But that was a time when we from Pradhan was trying to float our Kesla project. It was just being conceived that, okay, we need to do something about livelihoods, because Robert Chambers was very actively involved in thinking about the livelihood perspective, etc., etc. And Joy was quite involved in that discussion also with me. I had made quite a few requests to Joy, boss, why don't you come and take over Kesla? And Joy would say, why don't you come over and take over Majuli? And we had a mutual disagreement about this. And we continued to, talk about Kesla mein ye ho raha hai and Majuli mein ye ho raha hai. That used to be our discussion till the last day when we were actually having one of the basics board meetings, when we suddenly got this news that Joy has been abducted. Our board meeting had to be literally stopped. Nobody had a mood or energy to continue the discussion. And we stopped, we thought about Joy, and both Vijay was also in touch with his father, which is Shankar Ghose Sahab. We were also in touch, so we were absolutely paralyzed with that news. But anyway, we always hope for the this must be a temporary issue. Joy will come back after some time. That's what we always hoped. Even when I have been going to Assam quite frequently thereafter also, I mean, quite a few other development walas. Hey, do you know Sanjoy Ghose somewhere here? Is he doing something funny here? Because I was sure that Joy must be trying something. If he's trying something, it could be very different from all others, which others haven't even thought of. So I used to look for that guy who is doing something very funny, very different, till we had to really reconcile to the fact that he is no more with us. That was a sad day. It took us a long time for us to actually accept that he is no more. I still sometimes think possibly he is there somewhere. Kuch na kuch to karega yaar. But who knows? I am again pushing one more project in Assam, and I will be visiting them after the COVID is over. Who knows if I might meet him there? I'll let you all know. Thank you. and close here.
Thank you, Sankar Datta, sir. Thank you so much. We would now again come back to the request that we had from one of the PRM1 alumni, Sanjay sir. If anybody from G9 could come ahead and also throw some light on the uh, joyous part of Joy sir from the IRMA campus or from the days back then, please, we would request that.
Yeah, I was also part of the G9.
Yes.
We still have the G9. We still have a G9 WhatsApp group. I mean, our G9 continues.
Shankar, you should tell them that why it is called G9.
I told you that there was a film called Gunmaster G9, which was with Mithun Chakravarti, one of the stunt films and so on. So the title was very handy. And I don't know who thought of it, either Mukesh or I talked about it. And that's how the name G9 stuck.
Name of the film was...
Another side of the story was that time there was an election for our class representativeship. And from our side, we had nominated Matthew Cherian. We all said, yes, Matthew is our man. Matthew, we should do that. And we all voted for Matthew. Matthew got 8 votes. So, no, Matthew, sorry, not 8. We were 8, we had identified ourselves. Matthew got 9 votes. So we said, boss, there must be another person in our group whom we don't know. So we are G9. So who is that G9? We still haven't been able to discover. But Matthew got 9 votes. That much I remember. So 8 of us, 9 votes, 1 missing person. And then Professor Sambrani's this idea of a G9 word from that movie came in very handy for us. We said, "Arey yaar, ye hum log bhi G9 ban jate hain."
Okay. Shankar mentioned this whole election, I think because it's a IRMA group, basically, I think whatever some of these things that happened were really history. This was, the whole election took place because we were moving from a 1-year course to a 2-year course.
Oh, yes.
And the batch was badly divided around that. And the class representative resigned because he couldn't manage the divisions. So we had another election, and it was completely, so internally politicized, and I think that also didn't work. And then finally, there was another round of election where I stood against Mahinder Singh, who was for the 1-year course and I was for the 2-year course. And of course, Mahinder Singh won, and we had a class representative for the rest of the program. Though the course did become a 2-year course.
Yes,
he left after 1 year. He left after 1 year.
He left after 1 year. But that, I think, we discussed in that classroom, diagnostic lab ka classroom mein, what a halla gulla we had, whether it should be 1 year or 2 years. I possibly broke 1 or 2 chairs and all that. And finally decided it should be 2 years. We all decided to support Vivek's idea, and Vivek was with us and all that. So it was fun.
Kurian, Dr. Kurian actually promised to give that, enhance that the minimum salary level. So
no, the stipend also.
Yeah. So he had promised 1250 at NTDB, whoever passes, and he said 1200 or whatever. And he, that was the kind of,
No, 650 was our stipend earlier. That he enhanced to
1200 or 1250.
1,000. And they said that, okay, after 2 years, we had promised 1,000, which they said they will increase that to 1,200. So we said, hey!
Okay, yeah.
There's a little anecdote about Mahinder Singh. I think most of you probably don't know. Mahinder Singh, before coming to IRMA, was the general manager of a small dairy. And there was a conference of general managers of dairies. and he went and participated in it. And Dr. Kurian, as the general manager of Amul, was also in it. So he had the nerve to tell him, "You are a general manager, I am a general manager, we are all equal." And I don't think Dr. Kurian ever forgot that. So, this,
I am sure Mahendra Singh also will never forget it.
But in a sense, that dialogue was a forerunner of what we hear as political dialogue these days. You are an MP, I am an MP. You are an MLA, I am an MLA, etc., etc. So this is what is happening right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember Tommy George?
Yes.
Yeah.
He is in Joburg, I think.
I see. Okay.
He's also from the G9.
G9, yes.
Yeah, he was from the G9.
Yes. And Monojit is on this meet, I think, today.
Yeah,
I'm in the meeting. So can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir, please.
We are all waiting for you, Mano.
No, I'm listening to all of you. You know, I'm the master in our WhatsApp group also. Every morning I give you Gyan, right?
Yeah. Latest Bichar.
All right. So, I mean, some memories from joy, those days about Joy. Lots of talk about the developmental work he has done. But Joy as a person was so impressive and leaves such impression on everybody that you can't believe. When I joined IRMA, one of the main reasons was that 600 rupees that was being paid. So I had no idea about what is rural development or any of those. Joined from BITS Pilani, we are 5 of us joining from BITS Pilani. We are all engineers. And suddenly we meet this guy, short fellow, speaks in impeccable English, very stylish, but he has such strong views about development and what can be done in villages. We thought he was a fraud. But somehow, because I suppose our language and family and English, we became the closest of friends. And he made such impressions on us, like so-called G9. So Matthew, myself, Shankar, Georgie. Shankar still had some developmental leanings, but many of us had no such leanings. But being with Joy changed everything. Joy was, as a human being, he's such a lovely person that you can't believe. He was such a lovely person. I still say he is. Anything like Shankar talked about fun-loving. He had small things, he didn't need much food. He could stay without food for many days. His metabolism rate was very low. So 2-3 days he won't eat, but he's fine. So even in IRMA, he doesn't have to eat. He didn't eat enough. Some days he'll go and eat hog a lot, but then another 2 days he doesn't eat much. But he will take care of every friend. He used to love playing bridge. So we had a group of bridge players. And that's, I think somebody wrote on the Facebook, Sundar wrote on Facebook. Sundar was part of, he was a roommate of Joy, but he was pushed out because he was not playing bridge. So we had to shuffle ourselves to play bridge together.
Joy was in our room.
You were in Joy's room also.
We were in the one room.
Correct. But even post, during IRMA also, whenever we went to Delhi, we always stayed in his house. His dad, his mom, such loving people. Yes. The door was always open and there was always food. So we'll go all around Delhi and come back to their house in Dirctorial, and there will be food. His aunt will be sitting there, his sister will be there. Everybody is just there. They are all such wonderful people in the family. I was one of the first to, I think, get married post IRMA. He and Sumita visited us and they gifted us a dinner set. We still have it. In fact, my wife Geeta heard this and she came and just spoke to me saying that, hey, we still have the dinner set. Take a picture and show it to Sumita. Or when he went to Oxford and came back, he gave us small flower vases, which is still there at home. We still keep it on our showcase. I was also one of the, I think, first one to get an opportunity to go abroad. There was a US delegation sent out from NDTV, and I was one of the members. So I was one of the first among the batch going to US that time on work, not for study. So the entire G9 came to Delhi to drop me at the airport. So it was a gathering in Delhi. I mean, everybody came there. But before we went to airport, Joy insisted that we go to Hyatt Regency. I think that time it was. That was the only 5-star. There was a coffee shop. It was out of the world. We all went to the Hyatt coffee shop to have a coffee. I think first time in a 5-star hotel having a coffee because I was going to US, and they all came to Delhi airport to drop me. So such small memories, but so important for me that even after so many years, I can't forget. He made lots of impressions in our life. And I just wish he was there and we could interact, we could meet. We now have our get together every second year. I think every time we remember him. If Joy.
Next one, Sumita should join, Mano. We have been inviting her,
Yeah, Sumita also.
Sumita, you have to join. Sumita, it's a request from all of us.
Yes, and she should be part of the WhatsApp group as well,
Yes.
Yes.
Not that we write anything really worthwhile, but she should be.
Except the morning gyan, I think,
We invite Thomas sir as well as Sumita ma'am, both of them, to join the conversation.
Oops,
in fact, one thing I forgot, I wanted to say, but I didn't want to go there. In fact, I knew Loknath Behra, who investigated the abduction. And one thing he told me was that, they had a very unique way of transporting after the abduction. Sumita, I hope you don't mind me saying this. So they would take 2 or 3 people would take this person to another location, and then they will leave him there, and 2 or 3 other people would come and take him. So none of these batches would know where or the next location is. And apparently they were talking to him, each of these batches, and invariably Joy would smile at these people, and he would never break. And that actually upset this entire the group of people who were abducting him. So this is something he would smile at them and say that we should debate this. Why are you doing this? Let us talk about it. So when you say about conversation, when you say about how we communicate, how bold he is, and how convinced he is, So this is what Lok told me. We family friends. So I think maybe this is true. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to share this.
I think Thomas sir came online.
Yeah, TG is here.
Yes.
Hi guys.
Hi. Wow.
Hey guys, I can't resist this. I was listening to Shankar and I was listening to Mano, the 2 erstwhile G9s of which I was also a member.
Why erstwhile? Full.
All right.
Thomas, you have still maintained your G9 look of baldi, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
How can that go?
Wow.
So, I must talk about his Shankar Joy on 2 things. One, his bridge days with Shankar as a partner. And Shankar and I were the most fond of bridge. So Joy, of course, would come in and doesn't give a damn what the points were, but he would say, let's bid a slam, man, and move. So that was his whole essence of his life. He didn't give a hang about, whether the points made, if there were enough points for a slam or not. He would bid it. Okay. Shankar, of course, would go tear his hair out trying to figure out now what does he do now that it's a 6 spades or whatever, and he didn't know what the hell to do. And it was great fun. But I must talk about two other incidents which I thought were remarkable. And one was, of course, the first day when I was going to IRMA. He was on the same train with me. And somehow we kind of caught up with each other. No idea why. We didn't know each other before. The first thing that he did was crack a joke with me. Okay. And he said, don't worry, I've got many jokes and I will entertain you the entire time in IRMA. That was always the essential part of joy in my mind. Then, of course, the other incident was, I'm sure Mano, Shankar, the entire G9 will definitely remember when we had gone to Baroda for a jam session, for a dance party, and a fight broke out.
No, not Garba. Jam.
Mano, you
Garba, we cycled down to Baroda, no?
No. This is not with Ahmedabad. In Baroda, we went for a jam. And then there was this, the rogues came in and we had a fight.
Absolutely. So we had a great fight. And we, of course, were full of life and we plunged in and decided to fight it out. And I still remember in between all that, there was this small crowd which had formed. And I saw Joy somewhere in between. And I thought, poor guy's probably getting bashed up. So I think it was Matthew and me who barged into the crowd and said, move away. And, Matthew being Matthew, said, move away, guys. We want to come in. And everybody assumed that Matthew was some senior guy. He always looked the senior guy. And we managed to get in. And there we saw it wasn't Joy getting beaten up. There was Joy bashing up somebody. Joy was a boxer. And there he was, that little runt of a guy beating the hell out of some poor fellow. Okay. We, of course, picked him up and said, man, let's run for our lives. Yeah, there are about 50 people who are attacking us and we are about 10 of us. We, of course, ran for our life. That was the other everlasting memory of joy for me. Yeah, so I think those are the 2-3 things I thought I must
That reminds me of another incident, which is our Garba incident. Actually, the institute authorities, Professor Sambrani, please excuse me, he was part of that. Yeah. And he actually said that, okay, there will be no more Garba after 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the night. We said, yaar, Garba starts at 11. How can you? No, you guys do the Garba whole night. Next day you come to the class and sleep. This is not acceptable. So you have to stop Garba at 11. So that was a notice given. All Irmans will have to stop Garba at 11. So Sanjoy Ghose, being Sanjoy Ghose, came up with his idea. He said, "ठीक है. They have said that we can't do Garba here. We can always go to MSU and do the Garba, na? So how do we go to MSU? So we said, okay, we will hire cycles. We will cycle it down, finish Garba here, take our cycle."
Shankar, I still have nightmares about that cycling trip to Baroda.
All of us do, partly.
I was the only one who was uncomfortable with that cycle, yeah.
Yeah, but this was avoiding the law, but still being within the law. That was again another character coming up with a very bright, different idea, which all of us really loved it.
Jugaad. Doing Jugaad.
Jugaad, exactly.
Yes, absolutely, Jugaad.
Absolute Jugaad. This was pure Jugaad. The University Institute says you can't dance in the institute after 11. So what? It doesn't say you can't dance in MSU. So.
Hey guys, Thiru here.
Oh, welcome.
Hey, Thiru.
Video on. Hi. Hey guys, you can hear me?
Yes.
No, I just wanted to chime in for the other batches. They will be hearing all this, that there are only 9 people in the first batch. That it's not just G9 is one. They are the vocal bunch and the smart bunch. The rest of the crowd, there are 47 minus 9 or minus 8, what you would say, is the core. because they are the majority and majority rule.
Thiru was the founder of Andhra Mahasabha.
Thank you. And Professor Sambrani, is nice listening to you, seeing you. And Zerna was with me. Still, she's sleeping right now.
Okay.
But she was telling, how come he remembers so much, Professor? After so many years, he still remembers Zerna Oza and married some other guy. Yeah.
No, I said I didn't mention your name, but she married into Telugu community, and I knew that she was married to you. Actually, Jarna's parents came to see me when she was to be admitted. They said they were from Bhavnagar, and they talked to me in Gujarati. They said, first time our daughter is leaving home, and we are entrusting her to your personal care. So we said, don't worry. Rita and I both said, don't worry, we'll take very good care of her. So that's how it was. So.
But looks like you failed in that.
How?
Yeah, no, just kidding, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I took care of her after that, after 2 years. Yeah, getting back to joy. Actually, joy, it transcends the divide, G9 or Andhra Mahasabha or any other group. Because his mom, I think, is Andhraite.
Andhraite, yes.
Yes.
So he falls into this group. So he has a very knack of getting into every group. And one thing I remember about him means I didn't have much interaction after leaving IRMA. I visited Rajasthan once. So I was interviewing some farmers. I think I was doing some survey on oil seeds, if I remember correct, late 80s. So I was talking to villagers there. Then I was generally telling where I came from and all that. Then they said, we have a Chota Gandhi here. So I was surprised. Then I know that Joy was doing something along, I think, protesting the Indira Gandhi canal, I think. If I remember, my memory is fading a little bit. So they said, he's a Chota Gandhi. In fact, it's literally Chota Gandhi. Yeah. He was so simple and the small bundle of joy. I remember, Professor, you mentioned once I think I saw your letters to the editor, calling him a small bundle of joy.
I wrote a full-fledged obit for him.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
In the
So
Indian Express. I promised Taranpreet that I will try and find it, but it's been so many years, I can't find it anymore.
I think if
it is there on the net, the Indian Express piece, it is there on the net, you know. Yeah.
Why don't you circulate it to the
it'll be
to
done,
me also?
Yes, yes, it'll be done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to the rest of the batches on RPRM1, there are a lot of people outside of G9.
Yes.
Just yeah.
Well, the two illustrious people here in Gujarat, Rupinder Sodhi and Himanshu Desai, they were not part of any G9.
They're not part of G9, yes.
Yes.
That's
so
correct.
Sam, I don't know whether Shashwat is here as director, but I don't know whether he will ever send out that note, you know. Professor Sam sent us a note, Mano, Shankar and all, do you remember? We are at home at 7 o'clock and we had no clue what it meant. And we were asking where else he is on other days, you know. It was an invite for
yes. Yes.
Suresh sir, would you like to pitch in and share any of your views?
Bala is here and Jyotsna is here, but I don't know.
Yes, Bala sir, Jyotsna ma'am.
Vijay was here. I don't know whether he has left. He is in Canada, so KK is here. There's so many.
Hi. This is Bala, Suresh Balakrishnan. It's good to be back with all of you. I must say that
Matrix is here, yeah.
Hearing all
Yes,
these
I was wondering why you were missing me.
have been great.
How can you be missed here?
Maitreyi is always late.
This time I was on time.
On the point, on the dot.
But this time I was on time. I've been
Good.
here all through.
Okay, great.
Yes, she was on her time, yeah.
On her time.
Not on my time, I was on time. My time would be late, right? But here I was on time.
Good.
I think you should
Where
go
it
ahead.
matters, you
Could I
are
say
on time.
something? Yeah. Could I say something here?
Suresh, Bala was speaking, I thought. No,
No, please go ahead, Maitreyi.
Okay, fine.
Always Maitreyi.
No, let Bala speak. No. I would rather hear Bala than hear myself. Please.
Oh, Maitreyi. Not again.
Yes, please. Let Bala speak. I'd rather hear him. I know what I'm going to say. I'd rather know what he's going to say, right?
There isn't much to say, as always in my case, Maitreyi. It's just that I have a very, very heartfelt memory of the time when I last met with Joy. Sumita and he had come and they met with us at home in my little place in Trivandrum. And that was the time both of us were having little kids around, and it was a very different joy that I saw that day. The little chat we had was not about the big things that we were discussing about changing the world, but about children and those little things which matter so much in life. So when Professor Sambrani, Pranam, when you talk about children, I think we are touching upon a dimension of our lives in the field of development that sometimes we hide from the rest of the world. And I think that's an important part which many people need to know, that he cared for that part of life, and he did justice to that. And all the big things that he did were not by ignoring that important fact. Many of you who see the corporate side of life, of course, have a way of looking at it. But Joy, I recall, he said, "Hey, bache hai, we need to be with them." I used to wander quite a bit at that point of time itself, leaving kids around. So all of you who are listening in, please keep in mind that there is a certain balance in life. And I was just reflecting on another aspect of how Joy put together the various parts of his achievements. One of the basic principles of management education that I saw that affected me and the way I looked at the world was economies of scale. That we need to do things which were big and they built around numbers. And when I look at what Joy did, I think he understood it, but he kept it on the side, and he chased dreams. And dreams are not just one. People have multiple dreams. And he tried to give them life in pieces here, there, everywhere. And he didn't insist on connecting all of them to make it one big picture, one big building, one big achievement. To me, that's a very important lesson, that we do many things, and we need to be doing it in a manner which makes sense to us. And big is not always beautiful, and there is nobody who exemplifies it more than Joy. Back to you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Suresh sir. May I call Maitreyi ma'am for her views and her feelings and remembrances?
Not Maitreyi, it's Maitreyi. Okay, it's a Sanskrit
apologies,
word.
ma'am. Apologies.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, I don't have such substantial memories that everybody has shared, because pretty much between themselves they've said everything about him. Mine is more like a trivia. If people from my batch know that I was quite a feminist, And nobody would dare to say anything physical about me, like, you're good looking, or you're beautiful, or you're not nice, or anything, or your eyes, or anything physical. Okay, they would get it back from me. So I was very, very surprised once when I was wearing a wraparound skirt, and Joy said something very complimentary. And I was really surprised because nobody would dare to say such things to me. By the way, I was also married by then, before I joined IRMA. And so in the Indian culture, you normally don't pay physical compliments to a married woman, but
At least those days.
What surprised me was that, sorry?
Those days.
What surprised me was, in those days, yeah, I'm talking about those days, yes. What surprised me was that I did not feel offended at all. He had such a style about him, such a class about him, the way he said it. I said, this guy really knows he is gender sensitive. To me, there was no gender involved in the whole thing at all. It was like one person to another. And to tell you, he said, oh, you're looking sexy. I mean, that is an extreme kind of a statement. But even that he said without it creating any offense in my mind. And ever since then, I always remember when I talk about gender, that this is one person who understood gender. And he could talk like a boy and still not be sexist. And I felt this is a very rare thing in those days, and not many men had this ability in them. My husband is one who had, so that's why I married him. But this is one aspect of Joy which I thought, it's a trivia, but I thought I would share, that he understood equality in all its senses, not just race and class and caste, is also gender. And my last memory of him was meeting him on the IIM Ahmedabad Harvard steps, what we used to call Harvard steps, and having a chat there. And he was already in Rajasthan, and I had already started working on social movements. And very brief chat because he was in a hurry and he was going away. And later I heard that he had he conducted a rally. And I was so inspired because I was studying social movements. I really wanted to go and study the rally and see whether I could include that as a case in my thesis. But somehow that didn't work out. I couldn't go there. I had a course or something going on, so I could not go and attend. But he was able to, I mean, I was talking about theories, but he was there actually organizing a movement. So I was always amazed and inspired by him. And when I first went to Assam, it was in connection with tea plantations. I was at the Indian Institute of Plantation Management. I had some students who were interning there, so I had gone there to guide them. And no, I was also doing some executive development programs there. I could only think of Joy. I said, I have to see Majuli. I have to see Majuli. So the first Sunday I went off and took a boat. Brahmaputra was swelling right to the banks, and it was not even monsoons. Okay, and then I said, I can imagine how Brahmaputra is during the monsoons. And I went across and walked around Majuli, trying to remember Joy. And that's when I realized he had taken on such a huge task. Eco-development in that kind of an area, and such a remote area. My respect for him, I mean, went up manifold. I mean, we respected him a lot for his ideas, his action. He always did what he spoke. So there were never empty words about him. He showed it in his action. I still remember when Professor Ravi Mathai came and gave us a talk on Javaja. The very evening, he said, I'm going to jump Javaja on him. I'm going to ask him whether I can go intern in Javaja. So his mind was made up so clearly, and he wanted to go off to a remote place. And one of the few people who was very, very clear about what he wanted to do. As far as I'm concerned, I'm many others like Vivek and others perhaps were very clear about what they wanted to do. I was clear that I wanted to be in rural development. I had given up my mathematics to be doing something more socially useful, but still I was kind of sleepwalking through entire IRMA, I think, and I never really could understand as deeply as I could have understood mathematics. all the social issues, etc., etc. And here was Joy, who would speak so knowledgeably about everything. So I was always happy to hear him, because it made things clearer in my own mind. And so I'm really privileged that we knew Joy, and Joy was among us. Although his stay with us was so brief, but he touched all of us so deeply, and he's left such memories. And many of us benefited more, some of us less. But it's really great, and I'm really happy IRMA is finally remembering Joy and doing this for him. I'm so happy, and thanks to Shashwat, my ex-colleague, for doing this. And it's really great to hear Professor Sambrani. We all loved him so much. He doesn't, I don't think he can imagine how much we loved him and how much we still love him.
Thank
For
you.
us, IRMA was Sambrani, at least for me, IRMA was Sambrani and Sambrani was IRMA.
Well,
So without Sambrani, IRMA was empty for me for a long time. So thank you very much, sir. Very happy to see you here. And I think that we'll wind up with this.
Maitreyi Thiru here. I'll add that aroma of Sambrani, I still remember that. It's so fresh in my...
That is now a matter of history. I gave it up 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago. They always said that my aroma preceded me everywhere.
He used to smoke a pipe, actually,
Yes.
Yeah.
I just typed a message. How do I send it? Forgive me for my being very
chat.
ignorant. Yes. Yeah, I just typed the message on chat.
We have received the message, Professor Sambrani.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So,
hope you come back.
Not likely.
Okay.
Okay. So,
take care, sir. Take care, both of you.
I have, my priorities. So.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is Rupinder there? No.
He's traveling, so he could not join. Matthew is also traveling.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you so
I don't
much,
know.
sir.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes.
So as we end this session, and as we are coming closer to the end of the session, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all our alumni who have given us so many memories about Joy sir and told us a lot about him. He's an inspiration to all of us, and the chat window discussions are equally encouraging and enriching for us. We will also remember G9 plus the entire batch, everybody. We shall reconvene post-lunch at 1:15 for Sampath session, which will be a conversation with practitioners from Urmul Setu, Urmul Seemant Samiti, Urmul Trust, Association of Voluntary Agencies for Rural Development Northeast, and Charkha. The session would be followed by a session on Joy's idea today and tomorrow at 2:15 p.m. The session will be moderated by Professor Preeti Priya ma'am, who will engage in an interesting conversation with our esteemed alumni, Rafi sir, who is freelance consultant, and Shubham Garg sir, who is director, Grameen Shiksha Kendra. Thank you so much, everyone. We had a lovely time with all of you.
Yes, especially you got a sense of how this first batch was.
Yes, sir.
All the monkeys.
And I must thank whoever organized this, the students, the alumni. Great job done. Proud of you.
Thank you all.
Sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Great.
Bye.
Okay, bye. So we leave now.
Yes. We reconvene at 1:15. So all of you who join will